All right, Steeler fans, it is time for the All Betz Are Off segment right here on the Let's Ride podcast. Second half every Friday. You know how it is. Jeremy Betz joins me. What's up, Jeremy? How's it going?
Well, man, football is officially back, and I could not be more excited. We see the Steelers play in 2 days. Man, let's do it. Let's get this show on the road for 2024.
Absolutely. So let's start off. It's the biggest news like right now, like Friday morning after Thursday's practice. Russell Wilson limited. Everyone's drawing some drastic conclusions. What's your take?
I don't like it for Russell Wilson
for obvious reasons.
Yeah, we talked about this last year a couple of times too, where a guy goes into a practice and there's no designation for him, and then he leaves with the limited participation designation. That means that he was hurt in the process of the practice, or as is this case, reported something at practice, and so that limited status becomes okay. Now we're taking away your full participation and moving it to limited. So that doesn't really tell us whether or not it was okay, keep going on it, or if it was just we pulled him out completely. So I think detail wise, there's still a lot to be parsed out here, and we'll find out with this upcoming report today. But given the fact that they were so careful with him before in training camp, you'd have to think that the Steelers have to be minding every aspect of this. And could we see Justin Fields in week 1? It's not out of the realm of possibility as we sit here talking about this.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because here's the thing. There is no way to me, there's no way that the Steelers can say like, this is nothing.
Yeah.
Because once you say he's limited and you're following the rules, you have to, like the NFL requires you to say if a player even reports something like, man, my calf got tight.
Yeah.
But if the Steelers are smart, and I know that I mentioned this at the very beginning of the show about Van Jefferson saying he didn't really notice anything. Like he didn't know he was limited whatsoever. But for me, if Russell Wilson is in any way, shape, or form not as mobile as he could be, that is it's a serious problem. Like that's a really serious, because especially with the offensive line, they're probably going to deploy. Now, the good news is that Troy Fautanu was a full participant on Thursday. Will they insert him? I don't know. Will that help? Who knows? We haven't seen enough of him to know how it would impact the offensive line. But there's a part of me that thinks if Russell Wilson truly did injure his calf, whether it's a slight setback or whatnot, I think you have to go with Justin Fields, because if you have him as a sitting duck back there, that's not his game. You heard that in the first half of the behind enemy lines, where Scott Kennedy, who also knows a lot about Russell Wilson, said he is a chaos quarterback. He likes to escape the pocket and move around. And if you can't do that, what do you have? Would you turn to Justin Fields if Russell Wilson is just a little limited with his calf, or would you say, hey, no, he's still the starter?
No, I'm going to Fields. I don't want a Ben Roethlisberger 2021 situation redeveloping where you've got an aging quarterback who can't move like he used to, and I'm not comparing the two players directly.
Right.
I think
I get it.
But that case in point stands. And so I would go with Fields. If he's 100% and he can give you everything that he can give you, then ride with the guy who gives you the better shot. That was going to be the whole talking point behind Wilson anyway, right? Is you think he gives you a better shot to win in 2024 because he's the veteran, he's the 9-time Pro Bowler or whatever it is, he's the former Super Bowl champion. If he's not healthy, the guy who gives you the better chance to win is Fields. And going back to your talking point about the offensive line, even if Fautanu is healthy, I don't know the Steelers would make him the starter on the right side over Broderick Jones. The best case scenario probably at this point for the offensive line is to play the guys that have more experience, and that would be Dan Moore Jr. on the left and Broderick Jones on the right, with Fautanu coming off the injury. If he'd have been healthy all through training camp, that may be a different story, but as it stands, I don't know how much of an impact that takes on the offensive line's prep or who you would expect to be starting out there. So I don't know how much that factors in to the quarterback choice. Get the healthy one on the field is all I have to say.
This could be much to do about nothing, by the way. Today, Friday, the Steelers could release their injury report. Russell Wilson could be a full participant with 0 status, and he's cleared and he's good to go. That could happen. So let's keep that in the back of our minds. And a lot of people are reacting. I'm not going to say overreacting, but it's a strong reaction, rightfully so. But I do want to ask what you think about Darnell Washington popping up on the injury report. Didn't practice with a knee injury. We did see this at times last year and he played almost, I think, every game. I don't know if this is a just precautionary thing. What's your take on Darnell Washington?
Yeah, I'm a little more concerned about this one because he was a non-participant at all. Like,
right.
I'm concerned that the Steelers will have either a very limited Darnell Washington or no Darnell Washington at all. And the way we've seen this offense built with the multiple tight ends on the field during training camp, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, even at times, it starts to limit what you can do if Darnell Washington isn't on the field. And obviously, he's just a fantastic blocker. The Steelers love what he brings in the run game and in pass protection as a blocker. And so you lose maybe the best blocker overall on your team, regardless of position. If he doesn't play, that could be a big deal for a team that wants to, I would assume, come out and run the football in week 1 and establish that as their identity under Arthur Smith.
Yeah, it's going to be. Hey, they kept a lot of tight ends for a reason. Michael Pruitt is on this roster. I know he's more of a blocking tight end than, like, say, Pat Freiermuth, but he's not Darnell Washington. So we'll see. Again, I don't want to draw a lot of crazy conclusions after a Thursday practice report. We're just hashing this thing out on a Friday morning. But let's start off. This is exciting because it's week 1 and we get to talk divisional games. Remember, we go through every divisional game. We're not going to talk about the Ravens game, which happened last night. Let's start off with Sunday at 1 o'clock. Patriots at Bengals. Currently, the Bengals are 8.5-point favorites in this one. What do you think about this game?
This game has all the makings, to me, of a we're back game for the Cincinnati Bengals. Burrow's healthy. He participated fully in training camp for the first time in his career. And I think that is a huge deal. And Jamar Chase back at practice. I don't know if that situation's fully resolved, but he's at least back out on the practice field. So this to me is the coming out party for the Cincinnati Bengals against the Patriots. I would expect them to cover this spread and to win pretty handily. I don't like the Patriots this year, especially with Jacoby Brissett kind of holding down the fort until they think the rookie Drake May is ready. I'm just going to sit back and say that the Patriots start out really slow this year. I don't think the defense will be quite what it was when they're missing 2 of their star players from last year, and the guy who made it all work, and Bill Belichick, he's gone. So I think the Bengals, they have the easiest game on the schedule of any of the AFC North teams for week 1. And that's actually going to play out for most of the season too. The Bengals have a really easy schedule. I think they established themselves this week.
Fourth place schedule. And that's what happens. So I like the Bengals here as well. The 8.5 is a lot, but it's at home. I think take the Bengals, even giving that spread. Let's go to the next game. The Cowboys travel to Cleveland. This is a 4:25 kickoff. And this is interesting because, again, we haven't seen Deshaun Watson in the preseason. Already reports of his shoulder maybe not being 100%. They were reportedly shopping Jameis Winston, which should tell you what they think about Deshaun Watson's arm. But then you have the Dallas Cowboys, who are coming off the last time we saw them in a meaningful game. They got their doors blown off by the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs. Dak Prescott, no deal. CeeDee Lamb got his bag. This is an interesting game with a lot of intrigue. Currently, the Cleveland Browns are giving 2.5 points. What do you think about this one?
Did you know that Tom Brady's calling this game, Jeff?
I did not hear that. I'm just joking. Yeah. No, I heard that. Yeah.
I was going to say that's been the biggest storyline from this game so far. It's the guy who's not even playing anymore. But no, I think that this actually has storylines galore because the last time we did see the Browns and both teams, the Browns and the Cowboys, they both kind of got spanked in their playoff losses. And the Cowboys specifically, though, I think their demise has been greatly over-exaggerated. I think their offense is going to be great again this year. And the defense might take a step back, but they do have an established defensive coordinator in Mike Zimmer back over there, coaching in the absence of Dan Quinn. And I think that the defense will be ready to play. I usually do give the edge to teams with the better defense for week 1, just because defenses come out quicker than offenses usually. But in this case, I think Dallas is a better team. And so I'm going to take the Cowboys. What did you say the spread was? I missed that.
Cleveland giving 2.5.
Yeah, they're I think, yeah, I'm taking the road dog in Dallas here to win this game and cover the spread doing so. I think it'll be close, though. I'm not saying it's a blowout one way or the other. Cleveland's going to be tough, but Dallas to me it's being over talked about that they're going to relapse into a bad team all of a sudden this year when a lot of their stars are still in place.
This is tough. This is a game that if I was just doing select picks, I wouldn't touch this one with anyone's
correct.
money because I don't. It's in Cleveland. If this was in Dallas, it's an easy pick. It's not in Dallas. It's in Cleveland. So you got the weather. Not that it's going to be bad at this early in the year, but we don't know. So, I mean, Cleveland's offense should be better. Yeah, they don't have Nick Chubb. He starts the year on PUP. They acquire Jerry Jeudy. He's going to help Amari Cooper. He's going to take some pressure off there. Cleveland's defense is really, really good. As much as it pains me to say, they do have a really strong defense this year, just like they did last year. I don't know. And again, you look at Dallas and you look at their offense, like you mentioned, like who's running the football? Ezekiel Elliott? Are we really doing this? Are we really saying that Ezekiel Elliott's the guy? And I don't know. Who do they have outside of CeeDee Lamb as receivers? Am I forgetting someone?
No, you're not, because it's Jalen Tolbert, and there's a rookie in the mix there. It's not great after CeeDee Lamb. Their next best passing target is the tight end, Jake Ferguson. So
this is the game, and I'm not a believer in the Dallas Cowboys. I'll get that out of the way straight out. They told me a lot last year in the playoffs, and they didn't hardly make any moves in free agency, and their draft was suspect by most standards. I like the Browns to win this game.
Okay.
I think even though the sports books, you typically give the 3 points spread to the home team, they're leaning even to Dallas's way by having it be 2.5. I think Cleveland finds a way to win this game. The only way they don't, in my opinion, is if they rely on Deshaun Watson to go out and throw their way to victory. If they run the ball, I think they have a really legitimate shot at beating the Cowboys and starting the year 1-0. Although I hope that doesn't happen. I could see it happen. So we'll see.
Yeah. My one pushback because the Browns will rely on the run game, but I think this Dallas defense, the front seven, is where they're strongest, and they've got guys rising. Maisie Smith, their first round pick last year, is coming off a good finish to his first season, and as a sophomore could rise up. And then you've got obviously the big names, Micah Parsons up there. So I think they match up well in that regard versus Cleveland. To me, it's going to be, does this Cleveland defense resemble what it looked like last year in the early portion of the season, or the last few games of the season where they were more of a sieve? It's going to be interesting to see. But these interconference matchups, Jeff, are always interesting, and we're going to get to one here in just a second.
All right, so real quick, though, going back to Dallas, Cleveland, because I felt like we didn't touch on New England, Cincinnati. I don't think it was worth talking about that much.
Yeah.
But Cleveland, Dallas, the over-under is 41.
Yeah.
You taking the over or the under?
Ooh. I'll take the over, but just barely. I don't feel good about it. But I'll take the over. I'll take the over with the explosive elements on both offenses.
All right, fair enough. Let's go to the game everyone cares about. Steelers, Falcons down in Atlanta. According to DraftKings Sportsbook, the Steelers are currently getting 3.5 points, and we'll see if the line shifts at all with the Russell Wilson news. It might. With an over-under of 42, the Steelers are plus 145 on the money line. What do you think about this game?
This game's so fun to me, and not just because I have a slight affinity for the Atlanta Falcons. Went to a game of theirs last year.
Right.
I've got some family members that are Falcons fans, but no, this is fun because I think it's a matchup of styles, and you've got the stylistic approach coming from that Sean McVay tree, where you've got a guy in Zach Robinson, who is the offensive coordinator for the Falcons, coming from that system. Kirk Cousins coming from that system under Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. And the Steelers actually played Sean McVay's Rams really well last year and ended up with a win. And so I don't know about you, Jeff, but I think that the Steelers defense regularly comes to play when they're healthy in week one. And I know last year they ran into the eventual Super Bowl runner-ups in the San Francisco 49ers in week one. But in previous iterations, we've seen the Steelers defense come out and stomp their foot on the brake pedal of whatever team is coming out there hoping for a big offensive explosion. I think the Steelers can do the same thing. My matchup to watch in this game is the Steelers edge rushers. Can they make Kirk Cousins, coming off his Achilles tear, uncomfortable enough to where he starts making mistakes. If you get Kirk Cousins making mistakes and you can crash this pocket, what should be a really good offensive line, that's my matchup to watch. I think the Steelers can handle business against Bijan Robinson. And when it gets down to crunch time, that the Falcons are going to need Kirk Cousins to make plays. So this pass rush, as it is wont to do, is probably the key for the Pittsburgh Steelers in this opening matchup.
So did you say who you like?
Yeah, I like the Steelers.
What's the score?
Okay, so my score is going to be low scoring. I've got 20-14 Steelers, and I think that they're going to have a lead throughout most of this game. So I don't think it'll feel as close as 20-14 might feel.
Hey, it's week 1 for the All Betz Are Off segment too, folks. Give Jeremy a break. You didn't give us his numbers. That's okay.
My bad.
I think this is a weird game. I wrote this article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com on Thursday morning, and I wrote about how there's so much unknown about the Falcons. Like, who knows what this offense is going to look like? We haven't seen it. There was no preseason action for Kirk Cousins and most of the offensive weapons. And the Steelers, like, what is this going to look like? Who's going to be a quarterback? That could change a lot of the things in terms of this prediction as well. So let's keep that in the back of our minds. But boy, did they get it right with an over-under of 42. That's the over-under 42. I like the Steelers in this game. And they're getting 3.5. Definitely take the Steelers getting 3.5, in my opinion, because if they lose this game, I do not see it being a blowout. I think it's going to be a field goal game or less. I think they win this game with a final score of Steelers 23 to the Falcons 20.
Okay.
And I think that it's going to come down to the defense of the Steelers is just going to be up to the task more so than the Falcons. I think the Falcons defense is better. This 23 points, if they can get over 20, I think that would be a huge step in the right direction for the Steelers, who averaged 17 points, I think, last year. So we both like the Steelers in a rather low-scoring affair. You've got the under slightly, and I've got the over slightly. So very good. All right, Jeremy, no fantasy nugget this week. We're going to start doing that again, maybe some daily fantasy stuff starting next week. But what are your final thoughts? Anything?
I just like to go back to why I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have a real good chance to start strong in this game. And you talk about strengths and weaknesses for both teams. The Falcons' rush defense would appear to be their biggest weakness. And I think the Steelers want to establish the run. So if that offensive line is good, if Justin Fields, say he ends up playing this game, you add another element to that running attack, I think that gives the Steelers a major advantage over a Falcons team that's going to have a good secondary. Their linebackers are fast and physical, but that front seven outside of Grady Jarrett, there's going to be some issues there with stopping the run. I think the Steelers can force their will there. And then just stay tuned. There's a lot coming up, obviously, with the Steelers' first game on the horizon. Have an article coming out before the game comes out, and then stay tuned to the rest of the podcasts that we're on, man. It's busy. It's going to be exciting.
After you listen to this podcast, go check out the Draft Dynasty podcast, which drops every Friday morning on the FFS and NFL page or feed. Go check that out. But Jeremy, as always, thanks for your time. Enjoy the game, man, and we'll talk next week.
Sounds good, Jeff. Have a good one.